Good morning. Thank you for joining me today. This morning we'll be in Matthew, chapter 20, verses 1 through 28. My co-host is joining me today. For the kingdom of heaven is like a landowner who went out early in the morning to hire workers for his vineyard, and after agreeing with the workers for the standard wage, he sent them into his vineyard. When it was about 9 o'clock in the morning, he went out again and saw others standing around in the marketplace without work. He said to them, "You go into the vineyard too, and I will give you whatever is right." So they went. When he went out again about noon, and 3 o'clock that afternoon, he did the same thing. And about 5 o'clock that afternoon he went out and found others standing around and said to them, "Why are you standing here all day without work?" They said to him, "Because no one hired us." He said to them, "You go and work in the vineyard too." When it was evening, the owner of the vineyard said to his manager, "Call the workers and give the pay, starting with the last hired until the first." When those hired about 5 o'clock came, each received a full day's pay. And when those hired first came, they thought they would receive more, but each one also received the standard wage. When they received it, they began to complain against the landowner, saying, "These last fellows worked 1 hour, and you have made them equal to us, who bore the hardship and burning heat of the day." And the landowner replied to one of them, "Friend, I'm not treating you unfairly. Didn't you agree with me to work for the standard wage? Take what is yours and go. I want to give to this last man the same as I gave to you. Am I not permitted to do what I want with what belongs to me? Or are you envious because I am generous? So the last will be first, and the first last." As Jesus was going up to Jerusalem, he took the 12 aside privately and said to them on the way, "Look, we are going to Jerusalem, and the Son of Man will be handed over to the chief priests and the experts in the law. They will condemn him to death, and will turn him over to the Gentiles to be mocked and flogged severely and crucified. Yet on the third day he will be raised." Then the mother of the sons of Zebedee came to him, and with her sons kneeling down, she asked him for a favor. He said to her, "What do you want?" She replied, "Permit these 2 sons of mine to sit, one at your right hand and one at your left, in your kingdom." Jesus answered, "You don't know what you are asking. Are you able to drink the cup I am about to drink?" They said to him, "We are able." He told them, "You will drink my cup, but to sit at my right and my left is not mine to give. Rather it is for those whom it has been prepared by my Father." Now when the other 10 heard this, they were angry with the 2 brothers. But Jesus called them and said, "You know that the rulers of the Gentiles lord it over them, and those in high positions use their authority over them. It must not be this way among you. Instead, whoever wants to be great among you must be your servant, and whoever wants to be first among you must be your slave. Just as the Son of Man did not come to be served, but to serve, and to give his life as a ransom for many." Yeah, so Jesus first tells this parable about laborers in a vineyard, how those hired throughout the day receive the same wage as those hired earlier in the day receive the same wage as those who were hired later in the day. Which I think refers to everybody receiving the same wage from God, that is salvation, and no matter what stage of life they may receive it in. If they receive it from their birth and labor for Christ all their life long, they'll receive the same salvation that God's promised, as the man who is saved right before death. So, also it continues with what Jesus had said previously here. So the last will be first, and the first last. which he ended off the last chapter by telling the disciples, many who are first will be last and last first. This is immediately following the what he had told his disciples, saying, well, his disciples, particularly Peter, came up to him and said, "Look, we have left everything to follow you. What then will there be for us?" And Jesus replied and then said, "Many who are first will be last and last first." So it seems like an ongoing theme here of ranking in the kingdom of heaven. And then it seems like it was an important thing to bring up too, because you have the disciples then coming to Jesus and saying, the two sons of Zebedee coming and saying, "Hey, we want to be on your right and left hand in the kingdom of heaven." So, and also Jesus, of course, foretelling his death. Yeah. For the kingdom of heaven is like a landowner. Like many of Jesus' parables, this story is about an employer and those who work for him. Jesus will use this story to answer a question from Matthew 19:27. "See, we have left all and followed you. Therefore, what shall we have?" His reply came in stages. First, a promise of a reward. Second, a warning that God's manner of distributing reward is not necessarily the manner of men. Many who are the first will be last, and last will be first. Finally, this parable that illustrates the principle that God's manner of rewarding is not like man's practice of giving rewards. To hire laborers for his vineyard, the landowner went to the marketplace, which was the gathering place for day laborers. A man who wanted to work came there first thing in the morning, carrying his tools, and waited until someone hired him. Early in the morning, this is literally at dawn, usually reckoned to be about 6 in the morning. These workers, hired at the very beginning of the working day, agreed to work for a denarius a day, the common daily wage for a working man. This was an entirely normal arrangement. And he went throughout the day. If the harvest was not ingathered before the rains broke, then it was ruined, and so to get the harvest it was a frantic race against time. Any worker was welcome, even if he could give only an hour to the work. The picture is that the landowner had an inexhaustible supply of work for those who wanted to work. The impression is that the landowner was surprised to find people idle, because he had plenty of work to give them. Spurgeon applied this to us spiritually. Why is any one of us remaining idle towards God? Has nothing yet had power to engage us to sacred service? Can we dare to say, "No man hath hired us"? Call the laborers and give them their wages, beginning with the last to the first. These are day laborers, so they are paid at the end of each day. When it came time to pay the workers, the men hired last were paid first, and paid for a full day of work. The men who were hired at the 11th hour, who worked only about 1 hour, were obviously elated about being paid first and being paid for a full day. The men who worked for the landowner all day saw the men who worked for only an hour come away from the pay table, and they supposed, if the landowner is paying these guys a full day's pay for 1 hour's work, then we will get far more. The order of payment was important. If the first workers had been paid first, they would not have had time to develop the expectation of more pay for themselves. Possibly the first felt their vanity wounded by being paid after the others. They used their waiting time in considering their own superiority to the latecomers. But they likewise received a denarius. Yet the men hired first, early in the day, and who had worked all day, got paid exactly what the landowner had promised them, a denarius a day. The landowner did exactly as promised, but their supposition of more pay than promised was disappointed. They complained against the landowner. After being paid, the men hired first took up their complaint with the landowner. They were offended that the landowner gave the men who worked less equal to us who have borne the burden and heat of the day. It is easy to sympathize with those who had worked all day. They worked while the others were idle. They worked in the heat of the day, while others shaded themselves, yet they were paid exactly the same. But he reminded them, did you not agree with me for a denarius? The landowner reminded them that he had been completely fair to them. He did them no wrong and had broken no promise. I wish to give to this last man the same as to you. The landowner did nothing to explain why he did it, other than simply to say, I wish. The reason for the landowner's generosity were completely in the landowner himself, and not in the ones who received. Is it not lawful for me to do what I wish with my own things? Or is your eye evil because I am good? The landowner rebuked them for their jealousy and resentment of the landowner's generosity toward others. He also strongly claimed his right to do what he wanted with what was his. So the last will be first and the first last. Peter and the disciples knew they had given up a great deal to follow Jesus. Peter wanted to know what they would get in return. Through this parable, Jesus assured Peter and the disciples that they will be rewarded. But the principle of many who are first will be last and last first meant that God may not reward as man expects, even as the parable illustrated. Some think this parable speaks of the way that people come to God at different stages of their life. They may come at the beginning of their life, in their youth, in adulthood, in old age, or at the very end. Others think it refers to how the gospel first dawned with John the Baptist, then the preaching of Jesus, then the preaching at Pentecost, then to the Jews, and finally to the Gentiles. It is best understood as a parable about grace and reward. The disciples should expect to be rewarded, but they should not be surprised if, when rewards are distributed, God will reward others in unexpected ways. Last will be first, and the first last. This is the essence of God's grace, when he rewards and blesses man according to his will and pleasure, not necessarily according to what men deserve. The system of law is easy to figure out. You get what you deserve. The system of grace is foreign to us. God deals with us according to who he is, not according to who we are. It is important to see that the landowner did not treat anyone unfairly, though he was more generous to some than to others. We can be assured that God will never, ever be unfair to us, though he may, for his own purpose and pleasure, bestow greater blessing on someone else who seems less deserving. The point isn't that all have the same reward, though all God's people do go to the same heaven, where they will have rewards in different measure. The point is that God rewards on the principle of grace, and we should therefore expect surprises. He will never be less than fair, but reserves the right to be more than fair, as pleases him. God's grace always operates righteously. This parable is not a perfect illustration of God's grace because the principle of working and deserving is involved. The grace of God does not give us more blessing than we deserve. It gives blessing to us completely apart from the principle of deserving. Living under grace is a sort of two-edged sword. Under grace, we can't come to God complaining, "Don't I deserve better than this?" Because God will reply, "Does this mean that you really want me to give you what you deserve?" From Spurgeon here. My last word to God's children is this: what does it matter, after all, whether we are first or whether we are last? Do not let us dwell too much upon it, for we all share the honor given to each. When we are converted, we become members of Christ's living body, and as we grow in grace and get the true spirit that permeates that body, we shall say when any member of it is honored, "This is honor for us." If any brother shall be greatly honored of God, I feel honored in his honor. If God shall bless your brother and make him 10 times more useful than you are, then you see that he is blessing you, not only blessing him, but you. If my hand has something in it, my foot does not say, "Oh, I have not got it." No, for if my hand has it, my foot has it. It belongs to the whole of my body. Yeah. Anywho, carrying on here. Psalm chapter 25, verses 1 through 15. O Lord, I come before you in prayer. My God, I trust in you. Please do not let me be humiliated. Do not let my enemies triumphantly rejoice over me. Certainly none who rely on you will be humiliated. Those who deal in treachery will be thwarted and humiliated. Make me understand your ways, O Lord. Teach me your paths. Guide me into your truth and teach me. For you are the God who delivers me. On you I rely all day long. Remember your compassionate and faithful deeds, O Lord, for you have always acted in this manner. Do not hold against me the sins of my youth or my rebellious acts, because you are faithful to me. Extend to me your favor, O Lord. The Lord is both kind and fair. That is why he teaches sinners the right way to live. May he show the humble what is right. May he teach the humble his way. The Lord always proves faithful and reliable to those who follow the demands of his covenant. For the sake of your reputation, O Lord, forgive my sins. My sin, because it is great. The Lord shows his faithful followers the way they should live. They experience his honor, his favor. Their descendants inherit the land. The Lord's loyal followers receive his guidance, and he reveals his covenantal demands to them. I continually look to the Lord for help, for he will free my feet from the enemy's net. Yeah. Remember your compassionate and faithful deeds, O Lord, for you have always acted in this manner. Yeah. I think that's one of the cool things about studying the Old Testament, along with the New, shows how God continually acted faithfully and all of his promises toward men. And even in meting out justice, the Lord doesn't oftentimes distribute justice immediately, but gives grace and waits a period of time before doing so. And as is said, his rain falls on both the wicked and the not wicked, so just and the unjust. So the Lord always proves faithful and reliable to those who follow the demands of his covenant. But it's interesting here too that David asks the Lord in verse 7, "Do not hold against me the sins of my youth or my rebellious acts, because you are faithful to me. Extend to me your favor, O Lord." That is, sins of my youth would be implied to be ones which he committed in ignorance. And the rebellious acts are one he committed full well knowing that this was wrong and shouldn't have been doing that. But despite that, the psalmist reaches out to God and asks for his favor towards him. The Lord is both kind and fair, merciful and just. That is why he teaches sinners the right way to live. He extends this mercy despite us not deserving it, and teaches us the way to live. And finally, Proverbs chapter 6, verses 6 through 11. Go to the ant, you sluggard. Observe its ways and be wise. It has no commander, overseer, or ruler. Yet it prepares its food in the summer. It gathers at the harvest what it will eat. How long, you sluggard, will you lie there? When will you rise from your sleep? A little sleep, a little slumber, a little folding of the hands to relax, and your poverty will come like a robber, and your need like an armed man. Yeah. We need to work when it's time to work. Otherwise, we'll fall into need. Okay, well, thank you so much for joining me today. Hope you have a great day. Bye.